I'd like to welcome you to our meeting this evening. At this time, we will have Chaplain Grilly Mitchell representing Post 10630, who will lead us in our invocation, and that would be followed by our Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led tonight by Demaya Virgil. So at this time, if you will, all please rise for our invocation.
Let us bow our head. Dear Heavenly Father, we're so grateful and thankful for this day. We thank you for your blessings. We ask you, Heavenly Father, to be upon this nation, be upon our leaders of this town. We ask you, Heavenly Father, to be with the citizens of this town. Bless them. Put a hedge of protection around us all, keep us safe. And we ask you, Heavenly Father, for knowledge, wisdom, and understanding to go about governing this town, allowing them and help them make sound decisions that is beneficial to all. We ask these blessings for you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. We're waiting for her. She's coming.
All right, you ready?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good job.
You'll wait right there, Demaya. We have a special certificate for you that says in recognition of appreciation for your public service to the town of Nashville for your participation in leading the Pledge of Allegiance at the October 18th, 2021 regular meeting. Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate it. There you go. At this time, just to give you some information, the reason why we're wearing the shirts we're wearing tonight, this is our last meeting before Heroes Homecoming, the event. So they start November the 6th. Our town is a very active participant in it. Our veterans participate in it. Our chamber, we've got Dirtbag Ales, several organizations within the town that are very involved in the Heroes Homecoming event sponsored by the Federal Tourism Board. So what we wanted to do tonight is not only support them, but also show, since this is televised or it's recorded, that Hope Mills is a part of Heroes Homecoming and encourage those people that will to attend any of the events that run from November 6th to November the 11th. And we do have calendars here at Town Hall that gives you a list of every event. And thank you. At this time, do we have any additions or deletions to our agenda?
If there's no additions or deletions, I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed. At this time, we have official comments, and I will start first by welcoming Commissioner Legg back. For those of you that don't know, he has been away from us for a while because he had hip surgery, and now he's back tonight for the first time, so we're excited he's to be back and that he can also participate in our board meetings. So welcome back. We've missed you.
Thank you very much.
And I'll turn it over to you.
I would like to thank everybody for the well wishes, the emails, the phone calls. It's good to know you got people that care about you, that you work with. That's all I have at the time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Marley?
I'm good right now. I'm having a problem with my voice tonight, so I'm good.
All right, sir. Commissioner Bellflowers?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to ask us to take a moment of silence in honor of General Retired Colin Powell, who passed away yesterday. I would like to ask that, Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you. The reason I ask that is because during my military career, I served with General Colin Powell. He was a very inspirational general. He will be missed. He was honored and well respected, and he's a soldier. And my heart and thought and prayers go out to him, to his family tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Edwards?
I have nothing to report.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem?
I just want to thank everybody who participated and helped with the Hope Day event. It was really successful. A lot of citizens got a lot of
Oh, yeah.
helpful information that they needed. So I just wanted to thank everybody for coming out and helping to support that for our citizens. That's all I had, Madam Mayor.
Okay. And we did have our first domestic violence ceremony at our lake this past week, and this was in cooperation with Cumberland County. And just so you know, we're hoping this will be an annual event. And we also had an event, a cancer awareness event on Saturday in our gym, and that was raise money for the Susan Komen Fund. But it definitely was designated toward the KYAL Fund. And it was, again, a great turnout, and it was a great workout. So that was all part of it. You were invited to come, and then you find out the night before to come with your workout clothes, because at 7:30 in the morning, the PT lady, Ruby Murray, put you to work. But it was a good morning, good participation. We did have a good amount of money that was raised for that special fund. At this time, we have presentations. The first presentation is the Public Safety Building Project Update, and it's presented by Scott Garner.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm glad to be with you again and to give you a report on the town public safety building. Things are going well. We are making progress. The structural steel is complete. They're cleaning up. They'll be finished with that tomorrow. Masonry is moving along pretty well. We're making a lot of progress, and so things are going along. We are having some problems, but we're working those out, and as we point them out, the contractor's making corrections, so we don't have any issues there. Work is proceeding on the site work. They're building the parking lot for the police, and they still have a lot of dirt to bring in. They're starting to build L.A. Priest, and that's coming along. So we're making progress. Inside the building, the metal studs are pretty much up. A lot of conduit's been run. A lot of duct work has been done. A lot of plumbing, and some of that has been inspected and by the building inspection department, and it's been approved. Tonight there are a few things that we need to talk about. First of all, the contractor has had difficulty in getting all of the materials on site to put the roof on. We've got part of them on site, we've got part of them stored in warehouses, but we can't get all of them. The latest update was that it would be February before we could get all the roofing materials on site. Well, he needs to dry the building in to install finishes, drywall and all that. He can't do that without that. So he has elected to put on a temporary roof over the police portion of the building. The cost for that is $14,800. He is asking that the town pay 1/3 of that, which would be $4,933. I would say to you, it is in our best interest to keep the construction going. We do not want to stop. I mean, the alternative is we could stop and wait until February and pick up where we are. That is not a good move for us. It's not a good move for him. So I think what he's asking for is he will pick up 2/3 and he's asking the town to pick up 1/3, which I think is a very reasonable request, and I would ask you to consider that. Do you have any questions about that?
Madam Mayor, I do.
Yes, sir.
How's he gonna get that material here?
The temporary roof or the?
Whatever you're talking about, the contractor,
Well,
4,000.
Well, we've got the plywood for the permanent roof now. We've got the plywood. We've got insulation on water, which is supposed to be delivered. It was supposed to be delivered the 1st of October. They said, we can't do that. It will be February. So then we looked at alternative ways to insulate the roof, but it was thicker. It required a different fastener. We couldn't get the fasteners. And so we've kind of gone in a giant circle, and now we're back where we started. I mean, because we need to dry in the building. He needs to put on the roof, he needs to put in the glass, windows and doors and close in the building so that he can start the drywall work. We are ready, almost ready to start the drywall work now inside the building, but the building needs to be closed in first. So he made the decision that he would put on a temporary roof, which he has done, and it's over the police part. It's a self-adhering membrane, and when it's rained, it hasn't come in, so we think it's dried in. And now the question is, how are we going to pay for it? Well, if we don't participate, he'll pay for it, but because he didn't want the job to stop, but he feels that it's fair for everybody to participate in that, and so he asked that we pay one third of the cost, which is $4,933, which is very small in comparison to the size of the project. And it is in our best interest for the project to continue moving, not to stop at this time.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir.
did we just approve a big change order for that roof?
Yes, there will be a change order for that.
How long before we'll be approaching another $1 million
Oh,
investment
long time,
into that
long
job?
time. Sir, we have had very, I don't remember, we've approved like $6,000 or $7,000. Drew, do you know off the top of your head? We've only approved $7,000 or $8,000 in change orders on this building. And, I mean, we would expect, from my point of view, when we do a project, we expect that we're gonna have some change orders. We expect to be in the range of 5% for the total project. We're not even close to that. We're not even close to that at all. So we're only halfway through the ball game, and there's still a lot of work to go. So, we're not out of the woods yet. But we've gotten through some of the heavy part. I mean, we didn't hit bad dirt, which is very fortunate because that's expensive and you can spend a lot of money very quickly if you have bad dirt. We got through the steel, which is a major component. So now we're down, we've eliminated some of the big things, but we still have a long ways to go, and we'll have some other bumps in the road. But I think he's very reasonable. I think it's very reasonable to ask us to pay only a third. On some projects that I'm working on, they have clauses so that if there are escalations, the owner picks up all of them, picks up the entire amount. And he has not taken that approach. And I mean, the COVID situation is beyond his control, it's beyond our control. So if we all share in it a little bit, maybe it won't be so bad on any of us.
Did you say we're approaching $700,000 in change orders?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir. No, sir. We're $7,000, $7,000 or $8,000.
I thought we did 12 on the trees, 20-some thousand on the roof, and now we're coming back to insulation for another 9. Is that correct?
We haven't done the change order on the roof yet, sir, and that will come up, and that will be in the range of it'll be in the range of $30,000. But on a job this size, you would expect to have 5% in change orders. So I mean, see, that's $500,000. We haven't approached that. We have not approached that. We are what we have approved and what we have done is I don't know the exact amount, but it's less than that, much less than that. It's less. We have not we have not reached the 50,000 mark yet.
I appreciate the way they're moving forward with the building. This money that you're asking for us to provide doesn't belong to me, it belongs to these people that live out here and some of the people that are here tonight. So I, for one, want to be careful how we spend that money, since it's not mine, it's not coming out of my back pocket. It is, but it's not, because I pay the taxes here too. So I think most of you know that when it comes to change orders, I frown on some of that stuff. But I realize, being a retired contractor, that sometimes we have additional costs that we have to come across with a way to cover it. That's all from me, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Any other
Madam
questions?
Mayor.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Bellflowers?
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Legg.
You're welcome, sir.
Okay, Scott. We've been through 3 change orders. And out of those 3 change orders, depending on what was accomplished in each of the change orders, we're up to about, what is it, $7,077
Right.
that we've got.
That's how much has been approved
That's what's been approved. Now,
and signed to date.
Scott, if memory serves me right, the last change order we talked about was the roofing materials we had to pay to get those here. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That was the last change order we approved, that the transportation was an issue. So the contractor wanted us to pay a third of the transportation cost to get the entire roofing materials delivered here. Am I right?
There was a change in the cost of the materials.
Yeah.
And what happened was, he had, at that time, he had a delivery date assigned of 1 October. It was, when we went through that, it was prior to 1 October.
Yeah.
Then the manufacturer notified him that the insulation would not be available the 1st of October. It would be the 1st of February. So
Okay.
that it's beyond his control. I mean, at that point, he attempted to find an alternative method to do the insulation. And we fully explored that. I told him, I said, I want you to put all your cards on the table. I want to understand them first, and then I can explain that to other people. And so we went through that, and I am convinced that we cannot get that insulation until the 1st of February. My opinion is, it is not in your best interest or mine to see that job shut down and sit there for 5 months in the weather. And so the alternative is, okay, let's put on a temporary roof on the police side. We can do the interior finishes on that and continue the march, which I think is the appropriate thing to do. And so he looked at the cost for the temporary roof, and he's asking us to share 1/3 of that, which I think is very reasonable. A lot of contractors have an escalation cost now where anything that COVID related gets passed to the owner. And so we haven't done that. So we're only sharing in it in a small way.
I understand that, Scott. And you answered one of my further questions, was going to be, what location was the temporary roof going to go on? Was it on the fire side or the police side?
Police side.
It's going to go on the police side.
It's not going to go on the police side. It's already on the police side. I
Okay.
mean, he's not going to let this job stop. I mean, it will.
Well, we don't want him we don't want to stop the job.
It will cost him money to stop and come back, so he'll lose all of his subs. I mean, it's just not a good thing.
But the point I'm trying to make, Scott, is this. The last change order that you brought before us, we had the same issue, that the contractor wanted the town to pay a third of what that was.
Correct.
Okay, so, and we didn't want to stop the job, and so we agreed to do that. So here we are now with, is this change order number 4? Drew, is this number 4? Well, there's more?
There will be, I have another little.
Oh,
I have
yeah,
another
okay.
small thing to talk about too.
So my point here is, Scott, is that here we are again with asking the town to pay a third of a change order. I mean, $4,939 may not sound like a lot of money, and it probably isn't against the entire construction cost, but it's the issue behind it that concerns me. And Scott, we talked about this in the very beginning when we accepted the contract, that change orders, we talked about this collectively as a board, that change orders was our biggest concern. And no, I don't want the project to stop, and I don't think we should stop the project. But I just have to say that's how I feel about it.
And I appreciate that. I would say to you, I don't like change orders either. I scrutinize them very carefully, and all the change order requests that come to me don't necessarily come to you. Okay, so I mean, I look at them very carefully. We have to be fair both ways, but if it's the contractor's problem, it's his problem, and I will say that. I have no problem saying that. So I mean, I want to guard your money as much as you want me to guard your money.
And Scott, you have out of the first three change orders, there has been there has been a lot that's been guarded out of those three change orders that only results in $7,077.
Well, at this point, we could be higher, but
We could be.
We have screened them, and the general contractor has also screened them as well. So I mean, it's not. We do want to watch the money, and we do want to take care of it. It's very important. I agree.
Thank you, Scott. Madam Mayor, I would make a motion, but I think there's a additional item, so
I do
I'll
have
wait.
additional item. The other item is that we need a backflow preventer on the water line coming into the building. We have a backflow preventer on the fire line. We have a backflow preventer on the drinking fountain, but there was a choice to be made about the backflow preventer. It could be inside or outside, and it got missed. And it's just unfortunate that it got missed, but it got missed. And it's part of what happens when you have a large project like this that's complicated. And the amount is $3,827, which is not a huge amount. But this is something that we have to have. We don't have a choice about whether we have a backflow preventer or not. It's unfortunate that it got missed, but we've got 130 pages of drawings and 600 pages of specs, and they're not perfect. So, I mean, it's just fill in the crack, and we need a little bit of wiggle room to correct it. So I'm asking you for your approval on that.
Scott, are we buying the whole thing, or is this a third?
No, this is something that was not included. The contractor is not at fault in this. It was something that was not shown on the drawings, and we have to have it. So we have to pick it up, and we have to pay for it. It's not a split with the contractor. This is a straight item that was not included in his bid.
Oh, okay.
It was not included in his bid, and it was not on the drawings, and so we need to pick it up as a separate item.
And what does this backflow pipe do?
It protects the public waterworks. It keeps water from coming into the building and backflowing into the public water supply. And we have a backflow preventer on the fire line, which now that would be a very expensive one because that's a much larger line. This is a 2-inch line or 3-inch line coming into the building, so it's a relatively small item to do it. You can put it outside or you can put it inside the building. If you put it outside, the civil engineer does it. If you put it inside, the mechanical engineer does it. And there was some confusion between the two of them, and I didn't pick it up, and so unfortunately, it didn't get included in the bid documents. And so you have not paid for it, but now we need to provide it. And the building inspection, PwC will require that we have one before we move in the building.
Right.
We have no choice. We have to do it.
Okay.
Okay?
Well, Madam Mayor, if no one else has any comments, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve both of them.
Okay?
I
All right.
got one more?
We have
Oh.
some things that the town manager is going to talk about, the changes that we had discussed previously that were requested by the town. And, you know, the sewer line from the library,
Oh, yeah.
the
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so,
repavement of the lot, and just different things.
right here,
Okay.
so the sewer line total cost, they are gonna get gravity flow, that's at $61,321. Of course, that'll get included into this budget amendment, and we'll bring that back, assuming that we move forward. We really have to get this done. After that's approved and paid for by the town, Drew, myself,
Meet with the county managers and library officials and see how we can negotiate with them to take up some of this cost. So hopefully it won't be 100% for us, since it's the sewer line for the library.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, no one knew, I mean, technically, we didn't know it was
but
there.
we can't really negotiate with them until y'all
We have
approve
to-
it on our end.
We would recommend we pay to get that fixed and done. It won't happen until the third, the phase where they tear the old site down and remove it and then do the new line. And then we'll look to them, I don't know if they're willing to pay half or all or none, but we'll have that negotiation. The other item that, we were indicated we should look at and investigate, we met tonight, Mr. Garner and the finance director, myself, and the public works director met, and that is the paving. The paving that was
Yeah.
bid, I know,
Oh, okay.
it was a 8-inch base and 4-inch asphalt, which we determined our spec, the fire trucks won't be going onto that part here that's not, it's degrading. So we're gonna have them re-estimate that for us, with the 6-inch base and the 2-inch width. So we're not gonna give you that quote. You'd ask for those 3 items. The other item was, in the back part of the lot, that current modular building that we have. Obviously, if you are in town hall, you know that we have a planning position coming. We're pretty much out of space. We are gonna pick up one office when the victim advocate goes to the new building. But to have any additional staffing in town hall, pretty much ever, we're looking at potentially putting a 2-inch sewer lift to that library line that will be new. So putting in a water line and a sewer line to accommodate some kind of future expansion for town hall in the back is something that we think should be done at this point. We can always come back later and get bids on that and add it in, but obviously it's gonna be much more expensive down the road. Currently, the bid on that would be around $62,000. It's not insignificant, but if we wanna have any, you know, if we were to realign our departments internally and maybe some of our staff that currently is in the building with inspections, code enforcement, they're mostly outdoor, in the field type of position. We may look at having a future building back there. I don't think that the building we have back there is something we want to keep and have represent the town staff and have them house there. But the potential for growth in this building is gonna be something as we grow, that we're gonna have somewhere to put additional staff. And I think putting a water and sewer line in at this point is an option that we should execute. It's up to you. If you say no, we can always do that later. It will be more expensive and it'll cut through the landscaping and the asphalt and all of that type of stuff. So those were the only 2 items that we're gonna mention was the sewer line. Originally, we didn't know what that would cost. I think $61,321 is a lot more reasonable than what we had originally anticipated. And then the additional, water and sewer for that back lot area is also very close, $61,794. So those would be 2 additional items that are not scoped, but that I think, we'll also bring back the paving item. I don't know if you know, we parked back there realize to your paving, it makes sense to maybe add that to the overall project. But it's up to you, if you want to not do that at this time, it's your decision.
And that line should, those lines should work. Should you replace that modular building with a more up-to-date building, you would have those already in place.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir.
this goes to Drew. The 62,000 for the back lot, is that within the tenets of the loan?
Yes, all these are, I've already checked.
Okay, yeah, that's a big question for me.
Yeah, because, and even our portion, that would have to go toward the library, if any, I've also got where we can cover that in the same project.
So we're not going to be able to negotiate the 62, only the 61.
Yes, because the library has nothing to do with getting water and sewer to the
Right.
modular building.
Okay. So this is, so the back lot at 62 is like a front end fix. That if we do that now, when we've got the opportunity to do it, the cost would be much less than starting or doing this later on down the road, which probably
Same
would.
situation would be with the back parking lot as well, but we have to redo those numbers.
Okay. We're talking about a lot of money. Okay, Madam Mayor, I'll make the motion unless anybody else has comments.
Anyone else? Okay.
Motion for, I guess the first amount was $4,939 for the roof. Then the backflow pipe, $3,827. Then the sewer issue at $61,321, and we will negotiate with the county, yes? And the town hall backlot at $62,000.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to adjust our cost by adding these amounts. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I cannot support these motions at the time. I understand that we want this building done, but we don't want to get robbed in doing so. And not saying there's any dishonesty whatsoever. We don't know that that's going to be the cost that it's going to take to hook the water up to, and the utilities up to this building out back. That's just all this just a guesstimate. There's no firm pricing there. And when we get into that part, then we'd say, well, that was just a guess or an estimate, so it's gonna be $8,000 more. So I can't support this, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Sir, the amount for the modular building that's a fixed amount. Isn't it right, Trey? Yeah,
These are
yeah.
actual-
These are actual fixed
That's the-
amounts,
that's the
Commissioner Legg.
actual number
These are actual bid costs.
for that.
We're told that today, we think that today, but that will change when it comes. I promise you. Write it down on your book, it'll change.
Do we have any other comments or discussion?
Madam Mayor, just
Yes,
for
sir.
clarification, Drew, the change order number 4 will be taxed against the contingency funds in the loan.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay, we have,
okay.
all those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Those opposed, it'll be a 4-1, it's passed.
And you'll see the change order for this at the next council.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All
Thank
right.
you very
Madam
much.
Mayor, this does concern me. Don't get me wrong, Scott, it does. And I appreciate Commissioner Legg's position on this. It does. You know, we start down this road of change orders, and then all of a sudden, we've got all kinds of things coming at us at one time. And then I feel like we're held hostage by saying that if we don't approve them, then the project stops. And that really concerns me going forward. It really does. And I know it concerns Commissioner Legg, and I think it probably concerns every board member up here. You know, where are we at for percentages of the completion now?
We are approaching 50% complete. Approaching 50%.
And see, and this scares me, Scott. I'm telling you it does, because we're at 50%. Now, what's the next change order's gonna come, and you're gonna present them in the same way that you're doing tonight?
Well, would like to say there will be no more change orders, and I don't think we will have large change orders. Now, I think we need to look at, I mean, see, really, when we think about it, the sewer line, the modular building, and the paving at the back are additions that we requested. The contractor had nothing to do. He did
Yeah.
not initiate those. They are the large items that we're talking about. So they are owner-requested changes, not contractor-requested changes. So,
Okay.
you know, we need to be guarded about them. I fully understand that, and I will continue to do that. But we also need to be aware, okay, when we ask for something in addition, he is entitled to be paid for it. So
I understand.
that's where we are.
So, is the issue with the fire department fixed?
Oh, that's about
The sewer.
Yep.
that's been fixed.
Is the issue with the fire department fixed? That happened this past week, and I'm probably look down there and I see Deputy Chief Lopez. He's giving me the up and down, so.
My understanding, it has been. My
And
understanding.
the contractor paid for a lot of that, or how did that? In this 61,000, did that capture all the cost with that?
This 61,000 has nothing to do with that.
Okay, so the contractor paid for that piece for the fire department.
That is a completely separate.
Separate item.
I had this number,
Okay,
in advance of the escapade that happened with the sewer.
okay.
And I understand there was a miscommunication about it, and they connected the wrong line or whatever. I'm not,
But the contractor picked up all that cost.
the contractor, that is his responsibility.
Okay, and the firehouse is good, all right?
Firehouse is good.
Then we're good.
But I want you to understand, you know, the parking lot, the sewer line, they are changes that we initiated, the owner initiated. They're not initiated by the contractor,
Okay,
okay?
Okay.
And thank you very much.
Thank you,
And
Scott.
Sir.
I will watch your money as carefully as I watch mine. Thank you.
I appreciate
Thank you,
that.
sir. Next, we have an update on Heritage Park by Dave Toms, a representative of McAdams. And I'll turn over to Mr. Morrison.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Commissioners. Before Dave gets started, let me just say a couple of words. I've been giving you all monthly updates on the Heritage Park project. But with any project you're dealing with, the state and the feds, there are sometimes some hiccups or some jurisdictional type things. And so I thought it'd be best for Dave to kind of tell you all where we are now with the design process, and talk a little bit about SHPO and what their issues are, and then take your questions. So with that, I'll let Dave give you a brief presentation.
Sure, thanks. I just brought 2 slides to catch y'all up. So we are in phase 1 concept verification, right? So we had a master plan that laid out primary goal overlapping recreation, historic interpretation, and environmental stewardship that was generated off publicly available data, GIS, aerial topography, site visits, etc. So the next step in the process is to take what the intent was, get a new survey, and make sure everything works. So to date, we have completed the survey. That was boundary, utilities, and topography. So we've got a good understanding of where everything is out there now. From there, we've verified that the vehicular connections and pedestrian accessibility works, so we know our radii, turn radii moving into the parking works, the parking's dimensioned precisely, and we know we've got accessible circulation ADA connections to all the major park elements. We looked at, it did require some adjustments that I'll talk about in a second, but we confirmed that the adjustments that we have made to the overall plan are going to work with future phases. So as this one's complete, future phases will just plug in directly as you're able to bring those online. We met with Public Works, and we know where our utility vehicle access needs to be, confirm we accommodated that, and we know where our sewer and water connections are going to be. That's another one that caused some adjustments to the original master plan. I'll get into those as well. We have done some detailed stormwater calculations that are a little bit more than we typically do at this phase, but that's because that central flume is such a key feature, and we're proposing something unique. We wanted to make sure it would, we could say with confidence that it does work. So we've done a lot of stormwater calculations to make sure that what we're proposing will perform like we intended to. We've also developed some schematic details, and that'll be the next page, so I can explain how this stormwater flume feature is gonna work. And then we have completed the archaeological study that was a stipulation of the Partif grant. Turned that over to SHPO, received their comments, and this is an ongoing coordination back and forth with them to get their buy-in and final agreement. Marco mentioned that. I wouldn't necessarily call it a hiccup. I'd call it more of a communication challenge back and forth with them. They are not anti-development, but for any impact to an archaeological site, they require mitigation. So their first recommendation always is don't touch it. We then say that we need to touch it, and here are what we're going to do to mitigate that impact. And in this case, it is proposing a monitoring program as they do the initial land disturbance, just to catalog everything that may come up out of the ground so that there is a record of it. And then the other major part of mitigation would be the historical interpretive aspects of it. So the final design itself, and the fact that you're taking this from a beat up construction laydown gravel lot and the grown over flume itself into something that's beautiful and accessible to the public, that's mitigation in their eyes. So there's a series of back and forth letter writing communication with SHPO, State Historic Preservation, and the Army Corps. So that's ongoing. I can't give a specific time frame on when that'll get resolved, but the latest letter from SHPO does say that they're open to working out the agreement. So we're optimistic it's headed in the right direction. It is just cumbersome going back and forth discussing it. So, any questions about that before I jump into the plan? Good. Okay. So a couple of the changes. If in the original master plan, we had the comfort station over here and it closed this access.
Mm-hmm.
Talking Public Works, that access is required, so we need to leave it open. Then our sewer tie-in points, we're anticipating tying into the line that you see running across, you can see from the bridge running through. But that's a major interceptor line, we can't tie directly to it. So we need to tie in to a manhole that is out here. Just physically, we can't cross the flume and stay out of all the floodplain that we've got, so that's sort of pushed the comfort station into this area. So I guess that's the major change. Then we worked out circulation radii for traffic getting in this direction. The second larger change was originally we had two drives coming in here.
Mm-hmm.
This allows you to do it. After studying a little bit more, looking at the dimensions, and being that first phase is just this one lot, the access is more comfortable over here, just from a pitch. Imagine driving up. It's steep here, and we can fill it to make the access work, but I think for your average daily user, it's not as comfortable to be coming in and then dipping down. It'd be about the same steepness of the current gravel drive that's there now. So it's our recommendation that for the first phase, we do this Essing driveway down into the lot. Then you can see I've got dashed in here, white lines, how the phase 2 parking lot would look like. Just thoughts on that?
I'm gonna hold my questions until you're done.
Okay.
I've got some, but I want to see the whole thing.
All right, so the next slide, and what's got me excited is, you know, we had talked about, what do we do with this flume
Yeah.
to hit historical preservation and our environmental stewardship? And you've got a flume that's about 13 feet deep, you know, so how do you leave that in place and then turn it into something more spectacular? So the idea now is we are gonna turn the bottom of the flume into a stormwater sand filter. So water is gonna be collected everywhere it falls, out in the lawn, in the driveway. It will be collected into your small area drains and stormwater grates. Then it'll flow through pipes underground, and the alteration that we'll make to the flume is to drill 4-inch holes in it, maybe every 20 or 30 feet along the side, to outlet that stormwater into the flume. And then there's layers of media in here. So the bottom is just open stone for water to flow through. Above that, this yellowy layer, that is the stormwater media. That's the actual filter. And then on top of that, we'll have ornamental landscape, so that when it's dry and not raining, you'll look down and you'll see this pleasing landscape. It looks really good. Then when it rains, you know, a normal small rain, water will just come in, trickle through that filter media, and then make its way into that open stone layer at the bottom and move out to the back of the flume. But what I think is going to be really awesome, and why we did the extra stormwater calculations, was to make sure that we had the volume that ultimately at the end we get a little bit of a cascade by the turbine and the original outfall. So when heavy rains, the thing's going to fill up 6 inches to a foot or so, and then that water will spill into these overflow pipes and go quickly out to the flume. So then in a heavy thunderstorm or a larger rain, you'll actually have water running over again down into rockfish. So I'm excited that it is going to, we can say with confidence that it works. I think once we get it installed, and another piece we're proposing, you can't really see it very well up here, is to connect the two sides of the park to do an accessible catwalk bridge that goes across the top. You know, do that in some, I don't know if it'd be expanded steel or something like that, but something with a little bit of that industrial feel. You could cross over and look down into it, because the thing is, you know, 13 feet or so deep, and you could look at it on a sunny day, see the nice landscape moving through it, have interpretive signage around it, and then if you want to go stand in a thunderstorm, you can see it flowing through and spilling out the back of the small waterfall. So that is our progress to date. Any questions?
Questions?
Madam Mayor,
Sir?
what kind of grate will be on top of this,
On top of the flume itself.
on the flume?
Right now, we're not proposing a flume, a grate on top of it. We like to keep it open. So right now, most of it is about 4.5 feet high above the existing grade. So it's not a fall hazard. Where I think we would need to restrict it, and probably by putting up guardrails, would be up on the northern end of it. But it's our preference to keep it open. It's certainly not a requirement. We could go back and, you know, if you feel it's required, we could top it with some sort of screen or barrier.
Madam Mayor, I think if we have a deck in Hope Mills at 32 inches or above, it has to have a rail around it. Aren't we inviting disaster by not covering a 4-foot hole?
The walls of the flume itself are functioning like a railing, and then the bridge across the top would have a railing on it as well. So we would in effect have a railing around the entire perimeter of it.
So. That's all for me.
Okay. Mr. Marley, anything? Mayor Pro Tem, anything?
I just wanted to ask, could we get more of a visual of what that, the bridge that you're talking about, like later on, like, could we get something like more concrete that
Yeah,
we can look
perspective
at?
view.
Yeah, yes.
I think we can do that.
Commissioner Edwards, anything? Commissioner Bellflowers?
Thank you, Mayor. Tom, thank you very much for the Dave, I'm sorry. Thanks for the presentation. I've got some questions, and when I look at the stormwater piece that you put on here, have you run this through our stormwater director?
It has not gone through the stormwater director yet.
I have.
You think you have?
Throughout the process, I've shared the drawings a few times with the whole plan review.
Okay.
Just to give them an idea of what we're doing. So they've seen the plans a couple times, and the progress. So I've taken them progress sets and just told them, here's what we're doing. What do you think about it? Is there anything that concern you? That type of thing. So they've seen it throughout.
Yeah, because this is a major change to the original master plan that was approved by the board. And now we've got different types of functions here that are going on with this flume. Could you go back to the first slide? And in this one, we're moving the comfort station. And I think the original goal of the site plan was to have a comfort station somewhat in the middle of the park, correct? Centrally located. That was a big point of discussion, I remember, is that we really wanted that comfort station to be centrally located. Because what are we looking at for the comfort station? What's going to be inside it?
Male, female rooms, probably 2 to 4.
Because that leads me to my next question, that is, when we move the location, is this going to meet ADA requirements?
Yes, this meets ADA requirements. It does.
Well, yeah, in phase 1 probably, but as we go through the phase 2 and 3, is this going to meet ADA requirements?
Yes, it meets the baseline accessibility requirements. The main challenge is that we logistically cannot tie directly into that interceptor line, so it has to go to a smaller manhole first, and that manhole is on the eastern side of the property. If we do need to move it, and we certainly could do it, is to put it where we're currently showing the 2 accessible parking spaces. It's roughly the same footprint, so we could move it over here and get it more towards the center. The reason we're suggesting to put it over there is simply to give more room for the experience of being near the front.
Where's the handicap spaces going to be located?
They're right here.
Okay, so if we move the comfort station to where these are, because that would be more centrally located, then some spaces next to that can be designated as handicap spaces.
Yeah, exactly. I'd take that brown box right there, put it.
Yeah, put it right there.
and these
Mhm.
2 accessible spaces
Mhm.
would shift out.
Okay. Is this going to be the only comfort station in phase 1? I think so.
Yes.
So I think, if memory serves me right, in phase 2 and 3, didn't we have other facilities coming in those phases?
We were looking at composting toilet
Yeah.
down closer to the stream.
Okay. Yeah. And my last question, with these changes in phase 1, how does this affect the overall cost of phase 1?
Not significantly. It's the same major components and roughly the same amount of material. So as soon as we get agreement with SHPO. It's in our contract to do an updated cost estimate now that we've got precise dimensions for takeoffs on it. So
Okay, so this is-
I think it'll be substantially,
So this is not going to increase phase one cost?
not these shifts, it's all the same components, just moved around on the site.
Okay. All right, Dave. Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome.
All right.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir. Next, have a proclamation to read, and this is recognizing Heroes Homecoming. Whereas Heroes Homecoming is a way of showing all veterans that we remember and appreciate their courage and sacrifice to defend our great country now and forever. Whereas the Town of Hope Mills honors our veterans and participates in the ceremony and memorial services of honoring the many resident veterans. Whereas the events from November 6, 2021 through November 13, 2021, known as the Heroes Homecoming 9, will include services at different times and location throughout the Town of Hope Mills, to include a kickball tournament, chili cook-off, and a movie night at Dirtbag Ales, our annual Veterans Day ceremony at the Hope Mills Veterans Park, and the Field of Flags at the Hope Mills Veteran Memorial. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Jackie Warner, Mayor of the Town of Hope Mills, do hereby proclaim November 6th through 13th, 2021, as Heroes Homecoming 9 in Hope Mills, to honor our veterans, the living, the disabled, and the dead, and urge all citizens to join us in honoring them and remembering their service. Thank you. Next, we have public hearings, and the first public hearing is Annexation Case A 2021-03, Sky 107, LLC, Tom Starling Road. This is a non-contiguous annexation, and I'll turn it over to Mr. McLaughlin.
How you guys doing? You should have in your packets the memo that we prepared from plan review. And tied to this, and I'll get into that in a few seconds, that we do have a request for initial zoning as well. What you have under consideration tonight is the actual annexation. The background is that the Town of Hope Mills received a voluntary annexation petition for 21.10 acres tied to the development of this land. The proposed development is addressed as 103 Tom Starling Road and associated with parcel identification numbers that are in your package. The Town of Hope Mills Plan Review staff has had several extensive sketch plan meetings with the proposed developer to assist in the facilitation of this petition being submitted. The site is currently located in the Town of Hope Mills MIA and zoned under the MP Plan Industrial District. At the September 20th board meeting, Hope Mills Board of Commissioners voted to accept the voluntary annexation petition and approved resolution R 2021-20, directing the town clerk to investigate the sufficiency of the petition. At that time, the public hearing was also set for this evening for final consideration. Staff is requesting the authority to initially start the initial zoning process to the MP district, which is needed to facilitate the development after consideration of the annexation, and the memo from plan review staff with all the recommendations from the departments are in your packets. I'd like to open up the floor to any questions that you may have.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. McLaughlin?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir.
exactly where is this land located on Tom Starling Road?
It's right there at the intersection of 301 and Tom Starling.
Does it front 301?
I would say it's closer to the right of way for Tom Starling, because if you look at the site plan, it's in your packets. There's a
I
significant.
don't have a packet, sir.
Well, there is this, in the annexation petition where the plat map is, there's a nice considerable distance from where the proposed building would be located and 301. So it has frontage, but I wouldn't consider it to be frontage directly on 301. It's closer to Tom Starling, which I think where more than likely the entrance for the proposed development will be located off of.
Any other questions?
That's gonna come back down toward the red light at. on
It's
Legion?
right there on the corner of 301 and
Let's see
Tombstone.
there.
That's Gillespie Street, 301.
How far does this go?
That's Rockfish Creek right
Now, ultimately, just for, for the record,
That's what I
you're
thought.
being asked to consider the annexation. I'm asking for the initial zoning because we're trying to fast track it, but if it is approved,
Let me just forget this. Sorry
but,
about that.
no, it's fine. But if it is approved for annexation this evening, the initial zoning will probably go to planning board next month in November, depending on the hearing dates here. It may come back to us in December or January, but we're trying to actually set this new policy where at the hearing that you're ultimately making the final decision for the annexation, staff is asking for the initial zoning process to start so that it helps to streamline the process.
Madam Mayor, I make the motion.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to approve annexation ordinance A 2021-03 and approve staff to officially request the initial zoning of the subject property, the MP Plan Industrial District, to reflect the zoning classification needed to facilitate the development.
No seconding.
Oh, I'm sorry.
At this time, we'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak in favor of this annexation? Is there anyone that is opposed to this annexation? Hearing or seeing none, do I have a motion to
there.
close?
Motion to close.
Close public hearing, and now,
I'd like to make a motion to approve annexation ordinance A 2021-03 and approve staff to officially request the initial zoning of the subject property to MP Plan Industrial District to reflect the zoning classification needed to facilitate the development.
have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second, any other discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed. Next item on our agenda is annexation case A 2021-04, Chickenfoot Road subdivision. This is a contiguous annexation, and it is behind tab 4. And I will turn this over to Mr. McLaughlin also.
This is identical to the previous request. You're being asked to consider the annexation of a subject property, and we're also asking for the initial zoning request authorization. The back story, the back information is that the town of Hope Mills received a voluntary annexation petition tied to the development of 43.78 acres of land. The proposed development is addressed as 771 Chickenfoot Road. And the town of Hope Mills plan review staff has also had very extensive sketch plan meetings with the proposed developer to assist in the facilitation of this annexation petition. The site is currently located in the Hope Mills MIA and zone under the A1 Agriculture District. At the October 4th meeting, the Board of Commissioners voted to accept the voluntary annexation petition and approve Resolution R 2021-22, directing the town clerk to investigate the sufficiency of the petition. At that time, the public hearing was set for this evening, and again, staff is requesting the consideration of the annexation and the authorization to start the initial zoning process to the R6 single-family district, which is the district needed to facilitate the development. And open up the floor to any questions that you may have.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. McLaughlin?
Before we move on to this case, did we get a second and a vote?
Yes.
Okay. Who was the second?
Commissioner Edwards?
And unanimous
All in
vote?
favor? Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, thank you.
That's okay. Any questions for Mr. McLaughlin in reference to this annexation? Okay. This time I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone here that would like to speak in favor of this annexation? Is there anyone here that is opposed to this annexation? Hearing, seeing none, do I have a motion to close public hearing?
So be it.
Motion to close.
Okay, do you have any other questions or discussion from the board? Do I have a motion?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we, to approve annexation case A 2021-04 Chickenfoot Road subdivision.
Have a motion to have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed. Thank you, sir. Next, we have zoning 21-10, initial zoning of 110.89 plus or minus acres of land from A1 Agriculture District to R6 Single Family Residential District. And I'll turn this over to Mr. McLaughlin.
All right, the background is that at the August 30th, 2021 board meeting, the Hope Mills Board of Commissioners approved the annexation of 110.89 acres of land under annexation case A 2021-02. The proposed development is comprised of two separate parcels of land off of Rainforest and Sand Hills Road. At that time, staff also received authorization to proceed with the request to initially zone the parcels to the R6 Family District, which is what's before you this evening. In terms of the staff recommendation, Hope Mills staff is recommending approval of this request with the motion in your packets as also recommended for approval by the Cumberland County Joint Planning Board on September 21st, 2021. I'd like to open up the floor to any questions that you may have.
Okay, does anyone have any questions in reference to this annexation?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir.
a point of clarification, Chancellor. Over on, I think, the last page, under staff recommendation, it says planning inspection staff recommends denial.
Yes, I'd like to clarify that.
Yeah.
Initially, when the Cumberland County staff was considering the case, they recommended denial to the planning board. I attended the planning board meeting. I presented basically the same thing that I present here, that we met with the developers. Planning staff of the county was recommending the land use be changed from the R6 request we're requesting to industrial, which is basically going to kill the project. So we presented, the joint planning board heard both sides, and they voted, I think, 6-1 to recommend approval. So you have in your packet the original request from, or the original recommendation from planning staff, but what you also have in your action memo is the motion from the planning board that recommended approval. So there is an initial denial recommendation from planning staff. Joint planning board ultimately considered it and approved, recommended approval, and the recommendation of approval is what is before you tonight with the recommendation of approval from Town of Hope Mills staff.
Why were they recommending
From my
M1B?
understanding, it didn't make any sense to me. It's a land use change because the land use designation was mixed use.
Right.
So our request is to initially zone it from mixed use to R6, which is tied to the development that we've been working with sketch plan through for the developer. So when the planning staff, I think FCEDC got involved, but planning staff recommended industrial development, which is also a land use change, but we're not at the table talking to industrial developer. So it didn't make sense to me that we have about 5 months of history of working with a developer who we facilitated this annexation and submission for this initial zoning for this project. And the planning board, or where the planning staff is recommending a land use designation that doesn't make the project impossible to move forward with. You also have to find, look deeper, that when we're asking for this initial zoning recommendation, we've already annexed the property.
Right.
So we have that 2-month window where if we don't initially zone this to something, it becomes unzoned. So if there was some pushback, we should have heard from FCEDC and planning staff 3 or 4 months ago when we were considering the annexation, to actually try to recommend a land use designation at the initial zoning stage after the project has already been annexed into the town just didn't make a lot of sense to me. And from what I could tell, the planning board agreed with that, which is why that recommendation that you have before you tonight is recommended.
That's what concerned me too, Chancellor, is that I know we've already annexed this property. And when I read that staff recommendation, it just didn't click.
That's the reason why I attended the planning board meeting. I was kind of surprised by it, but We attended the meeting, the developer was there, a couple, I think Mr. Riddle spoke in support of it as well. So we presented a pretty compelling argument that what you have in this area is that, okay, the project we just annexed in, the first one was an industrial development.
Right.
We have 73 acres of industrial development under construction right now. There's another 46 acres of industrial development across the street from that. So in the way that we look at this from a bird's eye view from economic development, you need your industrial development to justify jobs. Those jobs are going to attract rooftops, which is what your residential development is. Those rooftops are needed for the Riddles of the world to bring us the type of retail that that area needs. If you saturate it with industrial, you're killing the retail as well. I've talked to developers who have indicated, and this is a very true story, that they brought Publix to Chickenfoot Road 6 separate times trying to pitch Publix off of Chickenfoot Road, and the first thing they tell them is, I need rooftops. They cannot justify from a market standpoint building a grocery store when all you have is vacant land and industrial development. We have the industrial development. We just annexed in a 5-acre industrial development. There's another one we met with last week that's just outside of our MIA, but right on Chickenfoot Road. So the industrial development is here. We need the rooftops if you want something like a Traymore Village or a Millstone across 95. That's ultimately the end result, but we need the rooftops tied to these type of residential developments to be able to pull that off.
Well, and I understand that, I truly do, because adding the rooftops, that would be with any retail,
Yes,
commercial
that's
development.
anywhere. Yeah.
That's anywhere.
Yeah.
Now, does R6 meet the South Central Land Use Plan and the Southwest Cumberland Land Use Plan?
The R6 land use designation request does conflict because the land use designation in Southwest does call for mixed use. But when I'm making that request and agreeing that it is a land use change, I just simply pointed out that the recommendation from planning staff was for industrial, which is also a land use change. So being that it's zone AI, you have to rezone it to R6 if you're looking for residential development, and that's a different land use designation. So either way, if the planning board would have gone with the planning staff's recommendation, it still would have been a land use change. Both recommendations were land use change. We were just basically pointing out the fact that the land use change recommendation at initial zoning stage is killing the project after we've annexed the property in.
Yeah.
And is this not sort of circumvented the way that things have been done in the past, in that normally they get zoning and then they come request annexation, but in this particular case, the all this property out there has sat for so long because the ultimate goal was commercial development, industrial development, mainly commercial, because if you'll remember, they didn't want the industrial title to start with, and that's just creeping in now. My concern is that rooftops right now, they're the way to make money, because there is for sure everybody wants a home. It seems like they want a home in Hope Mills. I just don't want to put ourselves in a situation where we get those rooftops, because there's a lot of rooftops going in out there in adjacent areas, a lot around Grays Creek and a lot out there. What's going to happen when these rooftops get in there and then some of the residents don't like the idea of all this heavy traffic that's already out there? For instance, the Walmart distribution center, when those homes were built adjacent to it, automatically they started having complaints about trucks going in and out. So that's the only thing I'm looking at, is this was done a little bit different than we've had in the past. And I'm looking at the comprehensive plan here about the two different Southwest Cumberland Land Use Plan and the recommendations for both of those. So I understand probably why it was done in this method, was because had it been done the normal way that they've done annexations, get zoning first, then come to Hope Mills, it might have been denied because of the plans themselves. Both plans are saying keep it mixed use, or they're saying use it industrial.
One thing, and this is why I keep talking about it from a bird's eye view, one thing that I pointed out at planning board that I'll say again, if you look at the existing makeup of that area, the properties that are in our town limits now, is about 300 acres of commercial zone property that is vacant.
It's been
And gonna
vacant for
stay
years,
vacant
too.
Yes.
Because the retailers we're trying to bring out there is nothing to attract the retail. So there is a balance we're trying to actually make between your industrial job creators, your residential, and
Commercial,
your retail.
yeah.
And it's a delicate balance, but what we're being told when we're engaging developers is that there's a high quality grocer, a high quality shopping center that has an interest going there.
But they need homes.
Just a little bit
Right.
more. Now, I'm also having conversations with the residential developers saying, hey, you're giving me the residential. Now I need the commercial, just like I'm pushing back a little bit on the industrial, because we do have the industrial. We have a lot of future industrial coming, so I don't want to saturate industrial. I don't want to saturate residential either. I want that nice balance because the commercial that we have is already in our town limits, but it's vacant until
Right.
some of these projects.
Madam Mayor, I have a final comment,
Okay?
and it could be a concern, but it's a comment. Over the weekend, I drove to these properties and looked at the layout of the land myself. I always do that. I do that for every zoning. I have for 4 years. Here's what concerns me. I understand that we need the industrial part, yes, and the retail part, and we need the rooftops. But with all of this annexation that we're bringing into the town, and the mayor's right, everybody wants a house in Hope Mills. That is putting a tremendous amount of stress on our town services. We're adding more rooftops, that's what you want to call them. That's residential. We're adding more industrial development. So to keep pace, we've got to provide services to all of these acres that we as a board have approved for annexation. So what's the plan,
All right.
the strategic
I'm
plan
glad
to
you
take
brought that
care
up.
of the rooftops?
I'm glad you brought it up because
This concerns me.
it's a perfect storm happening. We have, for the second year in a row, a record number of annexations.
Yep.
When I got here 7 years ago, we do about 2 a year.
I know.
I
know.
We did 3 tonight. And
know.
so, what my point is, these areas are not growing at an alarming rate just off of Chickenfoot Road.
It's
We
everywhere.
got 2,000 acres of undeveloped land where 295 is coming off Black Bridge Road.
Yeah.
So we are growing at an exponential rate. While everyone else is halting construction, the construction, and it's residential, it's commercial, it's retail, it's all types. So there is a concern that I do not have an answer for, but I like that you brought it up because we do need to elevate these conversations about emergency services. How does police and fire and what mechanisms should we adopt to address those concerns? Because Chickenfoot Road and Sand Hill, that's a long distance from here.
It
And
is.
so I don't have an answer to the question, but I do think we do need to start having that larger scale question. I keep saying, the discussion, I keep saying bird's eye view, because I'm looking at this from a regional standpoint with the balance of industrial, residential, and commercial. But we also have to be cognizant of where we're growing. We're not growing internally. We're growing at the seams everywhere you see it. And there is going to be a time where we're going to have some pretty hard conversations on what to do about it.
And see, and we hadn't even gotten to the 295 interchanges and the gateways. We hadn't even got to those yet.
It's going to
But
yeah.
you see what I'm talking about, right? And if we don't have a strategic plan in place now, or at least have an understanding of what we're about to do here in the next over the next 10 years,
'Cause
we're
what
not
you-
going to be
what
able to
you're
cover all
ultimately
these
saying
services.
is what we're looking at now is going to skyrocket the minute 295. is completed.
Well, let's
So
let's
let's
get
have that
let's
conversation,
all right.
but we have something on consideration
Right, okay.
tonight,
But
So
Madam Mayor, I
let's-
just wanted to express
Okay.
that it was a concern. I think it's time for that discussion. It's time for that dialogue.
Okay, but it's also time we
Yes.
have a public
Yeah,
hearing.
yeah, yeah.
Anyone here that would like to speak in favor of this zoning? If you'll identify yourself and your address.
Good evening, Mayor Warner. My name is Candace, and Commissioners. My name is Candace Alexander. My actual address is 1187 Clark's Landing Road, Rocky Point, NC 28457. I represent the buyer of the property and the developer, Dominion Land Corporation. We are residential developers. We're based out of Wilmington, North Carolina, and I've personally been with the company for 32 years. I'm here this evening at the pleasure of the board to make just a few comments and answer any questions that the board may have for me regarding our company or our plans for the property. We currently do have a contract on the 110 acre property that we have before you this evening for an R6 residential neighborhood, and we are a ready, willing, and able buyer. You've probably seen my face here before for several months for the different meetings and initial annexation, and also with Cumberland County for their planning board meeting. I was there last month. We have been working with the planning staff and the TRC for several months now, developing a site plan that will meet all of the town of Hope Mills requirements for an R6 zone neighborhood of both single-family homes and townhomes. The R6 initial zoning that was submitted by the town of Hope Mills to Cumberland County Planning Board was approved on September the 21st, 5-1. What we hope to do is bring a workforce housing neighborhood to Hope Mills. The area that we are requesting is a perfect location for a transition community between townhomes and smaller lots located between the Walmart distribution center and the larger zone neighborhoods across Sand Hills Road and Chicken Foot Road. The workforce housing is something that has been brought to my attention at the different meetings that I've been here, the different TRC meetings that I've been to, that is a need in the area. With talking with employees and folks from the utilities and the fire in the town and the medical community in the area, they find it very difficult to find that proper housing that they can afford and still be within the town limits. Just a note, when you're talking about the future services that the community will need, right now that property is zoned as rural agriculture. Just a very rough estimate of this property at build out is going to add over $150 million in tax value for the town, which will definitely increase the availability for the different services that community will need. One of the other things that was mentioned is and something that I know that the county is pushing is the industrial component that Cumberland County would like to see. Well, that is that's what drives the economic growth. Well, what that requires is the rooftops or the housing. And then that housing is what also requires the retail. And all of that together is what creates the economic growth for the whole community. So just wanted to make those few points, and if you had any questions for me, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
Madam
Thank
Mayor,
you. Yes, sir.
how many rooftops are we talking about in this development?
Over 600 in that area right now.
600 houses, generating $150 million in tax value. Okay. It's a lot of houses. That's a lot of people. It's a lot of traffic. And that's a lot of town services, emergency services. That does concern me. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir.
You know, a development like this that we're discussing, it's gonna have to have more schools.
600,
They say if you bring them, they'll build them. But we haven't talked to Cumberland County yet about that,
1,800.
to see if they'll build additional schools, but they haven't failed yet. We do have additional fire departments in those areas with Cotton and Grace Creek that could assist us because we are a long ways away, especially the crowded roads of the evening time or rush hours. So, there's some, as Mr. Bellfly said, there's some questions there, but I think that that the benefit of having the development far outweighs the disadvantage, and with all the building that's going on in Hope Mills, somebody's gonna build there. It's either gonna be part of Fayetteville or part of Hope Mills or part of another community. So if we got a shot at getting it, I'm in favor of us getting it now.
Okay, well, at this time, is there
I
anyone?
got one more comment, Madam Mayor.
Okay, but we've got to finish our public
I know.
hearing. We can
Okay.
comment after the
Oh, yeah.
public hearing.
I'm
Y'all are talking when we're supposed to have our public
yeah,
talking.
that's right, yeah.
At this time, is there anyone here
Yeah.
that would like to speak against this annexation? Okay, hearing none, seeing none. Do I have a motion to close public hearing?
So be it.
Okay, now Commissioner Bellflowers.
I don't think, Commissioner Legg, I don't think we have agreements with Grace Creek.
We have one with Cotton Fire Department.
I think Cotton is the only one we have one with. We don't have any agreements with anybody else.
But I'm saying we have a fire department in that area,
Yes.
which is public
You know,
concern to
with
me.
this amount of growth that's going on with the industrial, and I look at 600 houses, that's 600 cars. Well, no,
1,200
could be
cars.
1,200 cars. That's 2,400 people when we look at a family of 4. That's going to be living in this neighborhood, and to me, that would trigger a substation. And I'm going to ask this, and wait, got a hand up back there. That would go to Scott. Am I right or am I wrong? I don't know.
So I just want to make the point that this is the last year that we have any contractual agreements for mutual aid with any of those stations.
Okay.
So at this point, only contract that we have is the first responder contract for the Traymore Village area.
Yeah, with Stony Point. Yeah, that's the,
Bellflower's man.
yeah, that's the 70K
Sir.
contract.
Are you saying that if we go out there, we may need to look at a substation out that way?
We've said that for many years, but at this point in time, the way that dispatch is run, really mutual aid is becoming a thing of the past. It's automatic now due to closest unit dispatch. So
I agree with that
they're
concept.
going to dispatch the closest unit to whatever emergencies in that zone.
I agree with that concept. If you got a badge on your chest and a gun on your side, you should serve the public no matter where they're at, if you're able to do so. So,
Okay.
and same way as a fire truck.
Any other questions or any other thoughts?
I don't know that I'm comfortable with this until we have that discussion about a substation. I just, I said this in the beginning, and I'll say it again, we're putting a tremendous amount of stress on our emergency services that are stressed out, that are stressed currently. And given that we're in our last year of these, I'm gonna be nice, contracts, not say the other word, how are we gonna provide services to 600 houses?
One thing I'd like to point out again is that we do need to elevate this conversation to have it. I would like to point out that this land has already been annexed into the town. And basically what's the difference is, do we want to have control over the quality of development or not? Because I don't see a development that's not going to move forward if we don't annex.
And the 600 houses will not be all built tomorrow.
No.
It's
So
going
my
to take
point of it
time,
is-
so the planning time we have now is to plan for that
The time
future
to be
growth.
proactive
So,
with that
yes,
conversation, whether it's contracts, substations, or what, I'm saying we do need to have it
yeah,
because it's more growth that's going to come.
but it's going to take time to get
But it's-
there.
You know what, Mayor? It would really be nice if one of these developers or contractors were to approach the town and say, look, we agree with you. You need a substation, and we're going to give you 3 acres of our land so you can build it. That's what I'd like to hear.
I said
But
this
that's-
thinking the same
that's-
thing.
That's what I'd like to hear.
At this point in time, that's inappropriate.
Yes. So what I would say is that does need to be part of the conversation, but this evening, what's before the board is the consideration
Yeah.
of an initial zoning.
This time, do we have action for this request?
I'd like to make a motion, Mayor Warner.
Yes, ma'am?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the annexation of A 2021-4 and approval to officially request the initial zoning of the subject property to R6 Single Family Residential District to reflect the zoning classification needed to facilitate this development.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the initial zoning of 110.89 acres to R6 Single Family Residential District. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your right hand.
Go ahead.
Seeing any opposed? Seeing none opposed. Thank you. Thank you for coming this evening, ma'am. At this time, is public comments, but we do not have anyone signed up to speak this evening. So we'll move to our consent agenda. Is there anything on our consent agenda that you would like pulled to new business? If not, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda that's before you?
Motion to approve.
Have a motion, to have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir?
what happened to Lieutenant Sports?
It's on the consent agenda.
Okay.
All right, next
That's where I'm at.
we just approved it.
Okay, he's not gonna be here tonight to receive it.
No. Okay. Next, we have old business. It's consideration of a draft ordinance prohibiting large trucks on residential streets. This is the first reading of the residential ordinance. Now, I think that this has triggered some discussion that I wanted to ask our attorney to, I guess, further explain, because I did have someone that was concerned because we do have quite a few of truck drivers in Hope Mills, a lot that have issues with getting their trucks parking and spaces for their trucks. This was brought to the board initially because of the traffic of the large trucks going down Lakeview as cut-throughs and going up Johnson Street, going on town streets to get from point A to point B. So I don't know, I guess we'll open it up for discussion, and I guess ask our attorney to go over this ordinance with us.
So as you said, the idea is if the board wanted to consider an ordinance that would restrict trucks from driving on certain roads. The way we've structured this particular ordinance is not listing each name of the road in the ordinance, but referring to a map that will be subsequently approved by the board. And that would be easier to read and easier to review if you're trying to figure out where you can and can't drive a truck in Hope Mills. And it will also allow the board a little more flexibility with either adding a road or removing a road. You won't have to amend the entire ordinance, you'll just need to amend the map that is referenced in the ordinance itself. So the idea behind this is there's some flexibility with how we want it structured. Probably what would happen is that the town manager, in consultation with the fire department, police department, or whatnot, or public works, would determine what roads we want blocked off for trucks. And then that would come to the board for approval and discussion. And then trucks would not be allowed to drive on those roads.
Okay. Any questions?
Yes.
Yes, sir?
Is it my understanding that we would have one ordinance that would cover all the streets? Is that what you're saying?
So we can do it a couple of different ways. One way would be an ordinance that says these streets you cannot drive a truck on, or, from this block to this block, you can do it that way. The thought behind doing a map is it'd be easier to read, and it would give you the flexibility of, if you decide that we need to add a road, or you decide, this road we can't allow, you'll have the flexibility of doing that with just a map amendment rather than redoing the entire ordinance.
If we do it that way, will we be required to post signage on those streets?
I believe the idea is the signage would be posted, yes.
Are we wanting this to come back?
So what this ordinance would do is allow, this is sort of step one in the process. Step two would be adopting the map. Right now, we don't have the names of particular streets in the ordinance. You would adopt this ordinance, and then Scott would bring you a map and say, okay, these are the roads that we think should be blocked off. It would come for y'all for review, discussion, and ultimately approval of the map. And then that map would be published, and appropriate signage would be put up once that's done. So this would really be part one of a two-step process.
Mayor, would it be appropriate at this time to ask the town manager to work with the attorney on drafting this ordinance?
It's already drafted.
That's
Right now,
already
just
drafted.
all we'd have to do is
That's
the
what I
map.
get for staying home.
It's just first reading. It's just for information this evening. Yeah. And one question that I would ask, and I think I believe would be important, is because we do have quite a lot of truck drivers and owners of trucks, I can right now go take you to 2 or 3 that are close by. I believe that we might want to consider talking to some of those owners of trucks, because I found I actually was the 95 Muscle place on Legion Road has allowed some of the trucks to park either their cabs or their trailers back there. And I don't know if they're charging a fee or whatever, but I believe that what we also need to look at is how can we accommodate those that use the trucks for their living as compared to those that cut through going from Walmart on Legion Road to Walmart on out here on Main Street when they could take 162. I think the goal for 162 was to move some of these heavy vehicles off of the town streets, but I would not want to cause hardships on those that need the livelihood of driving a truck. So if we could maybe bring in some of those owners, maybe to have a conversation with them. I know that we dealt with this one time before, and it caused a lot of hard feelings because they were parking at the parking lot up on the Mr. George's property at the golf course. And if you'll recall, at that time we put a lot of hardships on those vehicles owners. So would that be possible to maybe request some input from those people that determine, that live in Hope Mills, that drive trucks?
Sure, and I would like to add that, this doesn't restrict things like deliveries, fire trucks.
Mhm.
I think what you're trying to discourage is semi-tractors parking in residential driveways, the noise, the running the trucks, cut-through routes. So the designated routes, we do have, Public Works has worked with us, we do have designated DOT routes. I think having a map that shows what those corridors are, and then possibly subsequent, the big thing is enforceability, right? If the enforcement piece is lacking, you don't understand where you can and can't, it's difficult when you have a lot of stuff on South Main, which, if they're delivering to CES or some of those businesses, they are.
They do need to be there,
They
yeah.
have that right to be there, but just driving big semis through some of these corridors is not conducive to residential traffic.
Okay.
So I think that the reference, as town attorneys preferred, is a more usable tool than just saying, oh, now
I agree, so,
we
yeah.
need to amend it again, and we can act by adopting by reference in this fashion, a better usable tool to put on our website, send to DOT and coordinate with them, so that, but I think that is a concern, and, you know, the earlier discussion about the commercial and industrial use, having a large truck stop on 95 or those types of means in the community are gonna benefit those people that live and work here, as well as those people that drive through on the interstate. So, yeah, we've been working together, and we'll continue to.
Okay.
bring that forward.
Maybe we can reach out to, and I know that we probably all can identify someone that drives a truck. Okay. Anything else in reference to this? Tonight, this was just a read, and to take a look at it, we'll bring it back with the map at the second reading. Is that my understanding? Are we gonna try to do that before we adopt it?
I'm not sure the status of the map, but you would, so the idea is, we can't adopt the ordinance tonight because it's the first time it's been introduced.
Right.
And the way the law works, you can't do that. You could adopt the ordinance, and then it would really take effect once you adopt the map.
Okay.
So you could do it at a separate time, but I believe we're working on the map.
Okay. So that could be at our next meeting. We could bring, because that's it's a while to our next meeting. Okay.
We'll do our best to come up with a
Okay. Thank
Madam
you.
Mayor,
Yes,
that
sir.
was my main concern with adopting an ordinance or a map is, you know, as long as it doesn't restrict the delivery to our businesses and Hope Mills. That's the key, is to try to find the right balance. I think that's the spirit of the ordinance. But we surely don't want to restrict any deliveries to our businesses. So I think that's what we're trying to find. Thank you, Mayor.
I think it's written to allow.
Yep.
Okay, next we have new business, and it's consideration of Resolution R 2021-024, instructing the town clerk to check for sufficiency of annexation petition, and Resolution R 2021-25, setting a public hearing date of November the 15th, 21 for annexation A 2021-05, 4465 Calico Street. Any questions? Do we have a motion to approve the
Motion to
resolution?
approve, Madam Mayor.
Okay, we have a motion to
Second.
approve the resolution, instructing the town clerk to check for sufficient annexation, and Resolution R 2021 to setting a public hearing date. All those, second? Got a
Second.
Got a second? All those in favor signify by raising your right hand.
Oh, yeah.
And any opposed? Seeing none opposed. All right, next we have consideration of appointing 2 applicants to the Prime Movers Committee, and I'll turn that over to Dr. McCray.
Yourself.
Madam Mayor and the board, the nominating committee would like to recommend Justin Scrutulaman and Vanessa Daniels to the Prime Movers Committee. It has 2 open seats and there were 2 applicants.
Okay,
Second that, Mayor.
okay, we have a motion.
To approve.
Motion to approve and a second, Commissioner Legg. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand, seeing none opposed. Next, I asked, if you all know that we had some vandalism in the park, and the sign that they chose to damage beyond repair was the Friends of the Hope Mills Library sign. I do know that we probably don't, it probably is not going to fit as far as an insurance claim, because the value of it was not as much as the deductible. But I'm just requesting that we purchase a new sign for this site, especially since it took so long to get it there, and it was purchased by an outside source.
Madam Mayor,
Yes,
I
sir.
would make a motion that we purchase a new sign for the library, because several of us are on that sign. And matter not where we are or not, the right thing for the library is to have the sign.
Okay, Mr. Holland, do you have a value? I don't recall what the total price was for the sign.
I don't have an amount just to fix it. I haven't gotten anything from, Dennis.
Okay. Well, I know it'll have to be recreated, because it was in so many pieces, he couldn't repair it, so I guess what we just need, if Commissioner Leggs made a motion to replace it, do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second, and then I would just ask that we contact Mr. Breckner, if this is approved, so that he could get started on it, because if you'll recall, that was a routed sign, and it took a long time to make it. Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed. Next, we have discussion of dedicated veteran parking space at Hope Mills Lake. This was requested by Greeley Mitchell, Veterans Affairs Committee. And Commissioner Marley, did you want to recognize?
Yes, ma'am, if it'd be appropriate at this time.
Because he's got
Here, I'd like for him to step up to the mic. Sorry.
Commissioner Marley has a voice problem.
Borrow my cane?
There's probably a lot of people happy about
Good evening, Madam Mayor,
Good evening.
Town Commissioners. We received the request during Heroes Homecoming from Rick Murillo. He's deals with veteran, I think it's 22. He represents the veterans, and he wanted to do a parking lot dedication. So we was talking about it, and why you don't do one at Hope Mills? We have one at Hope Mills down at DMV, but why come we don't have one down by the Veterans Park? And that's how this came about. So we just requesting y'all approval to have a sign installed down here, probably beside one of the handicap spots, so that it can happen on Veterans Day, which would be actually the closing ceremony for Heroes Homecoming.
So instead of Hope Mills Lake, it would be up here
Yes, it
at the
would be up
Veterans
here.
Memorial Park.
Yes. And the one at the lake would be at a later date and time. We just have to determine what would be the best time for him to do that.
Okay. And is there any cost to the town?
Other than installation of the sign, there's no,
Just
no, the installation
installation?
of the pole, of course.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
really, I think this is a well-deserved honor. I'd like to up it to 2.
To two, we have to get with,
I'd like to up it to 2.
have to talk with Rick Murillo. I think as of right now, it's only planned for just one. And it's part of our Veteran Day ceremony. And, we have a time constraint on that, so we have to talk with the adjutant. And we'll talk about it at the meeting that we have coming up on the 26th. That's right, Jim, the 26th?
Next Thursday.
Yes.
Because we're reserving it for POW, just like you're saying here?
Yes.
Is that the sign's gonna go on it?
I'm not for sure, but I know he have a sign, but it's going to be in honor of
Yeah.
of Master Sergeant Robert Anspot. He's MIA.
I'd like to see us honor one of our ex-POWs. That's a second spot.
But what I would suggest that it's a good idea, but we talk with Rick, and that's maybe something we consider for Memorial Day, because I think he only do one at a time. That is the standard procedure and standard protocol that he use. But that's a good idea, Commissioner.
It is, because, every event that we have down at the Lake Park, we always have difficulties with parking spaces.
Yes.
These would give us 2 dedicated parking places.
But we'll get a chance to talk with Rick next Thursday at our meeting.
All right.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
So you're making that motion to?
I am.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed.
All right, thank you, and thank you
Thank
for
you,
your
sir.
comments on Colin Powell.
Thank you. All right, next we have discussion of the chapel exterior light fixtures, hymnal racks, kneeling benches, repairs, and a holiday open house at the chapel during the town Christmas parade. And Commissioner Bellflowers, you requested this to be on our agenda. So I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, Mayor. The HPC met on Wednesday night, and I don't want to go into all the meeting, what the discussion was from that meeting, but one of the main parts of it that came was that there's still some chapel repairs that need to be fixed. And they sent me a list, and we talked about it during the meeting. They would, regarding the exterior lights, the hymnal racks, the kneeling benches repairs. And these items have not been repaired or replaced. I would think probably because of lack of funding. Is that right, Scott? Is that where we are with it?
Some of the things like the lights are still being repaired. You can't just put them back up in the condition they're in. We do have the sign. We need to have it anchored to the brick, and that's been a concern with people on the committee. And then a lot of the things that the contractor that was hired to do those items that the commission has asked, the committee has asked for, weren't specifically spelled out the way that they're asking for them in the contract you have with the contractor.
Right.
So, you're correct, pretty much everything except for those items have been done and committed in the prior work. So any additional things, we haven't had additional motions or actions with a budget amendment or any kind of additional direction from the council to move forward with it. We have seen lists, we have seen suggestions, but I haven't had any formal action to do anything with this.
Madam Mayor, thanks, Scott. The reason I bring this to the board is because at our retreat in early spring, one of our goals from that retreat was that we wanted the chapel to be completely finished by the end of this year. And these are the remaining items that would finish the chapel repairs. They'd also like to have a holiday open house in accordance with the town Christmas parade, which, you know, it's a beautiful chapel, and if we were to finish this thing and have it open during the Christmas parade, it really would highlight the town's Christmas parade event. Currently, from the historical funds, they have, from their reserves, they have $75,737. I don't know how much these repairs would be, but they have that in their historical fund from prior years that's left. So I'm going to ask the board that to authorize the town manager to take a direction on looking at getting these final items fixed and replaced in the chapel.
Is that a motion?
It is.
I'll second that. And in doing so, Scott, there has been some requests for additional funding and additional things that they wanted, like to be not be a committee, to be, what do you call it?
Commission.
Committee.
Commission.
Not be a committee, but be a commission. That was not acted on as well. I agree with Mr. Bellflower that if possible, you could take necessary steps to make sure this stuff is completed by Christmas, like time for the Christmas parade. That's not very long. But get what we can done.
I would ask that the open house of the chapel go through our events planner and Lamarco, because they are making the arrangements for the Christmas parade and the Christmas events. So I know they met this week to finish out the calendar, so that needs to go. That's not something I believe the board should act on. It should be something that should go channel toward our planner or to Lamarco Morrison. So we have a motion and we have a second on completing the repairs in the church. Do we have any other discussion?
Mayor Warner,
Yes, ma'am.
we've discussed it, I don't know how many times, but to me, I don't think it's up to us to make a motion on it, because I think the town manager and the staff and all is already working on it. And we don't do this for the other committees either, so I don't think it's fair to do it for one and not all of them.
I think that we don't have a budget amendment, so.
That's the problem. We don't have a budget amendment.
Well, then budget amendment is what you need, not a motion to,
That's what I'm asking for.
I didn't hear budget amendment. You want to rephrase it?
Well, it's going to take a budget amendment to fund it, but it's going to take a direction of the town manager to look at these items and get an estimate of repairs.
Okay.
So we got to have the repairs estimate before we can do a budget amendment.
So I guess the request then would be the motion is to, instead of, would be for him to seek and bring back to the board the cost of these repairs? Is that what you're looking for? And then at that point, we can determine and make a budget amendment to replace the items or to fix the items?
Madam Mayor, it's probably just as easy just to contact the contractor that did all the work in the chapel and just have him give make him the opportunity to provide the estimates of the repairs, since he did all the work to start with.
Yeah.
I mean, these items evidently were, left off his original estimate, And I would like to give him the opportunity to come back and, since he did all that work in the chapel, to have the opportunity to finish this.
Okay, well, I guess we're directing the town manager then to seek information and bring it back to the board. So I've got a motion, and that motion, we've kind of altered it a little bit. But the goal is to have our town manager, by instruction, to get us information on completing the repairs of the church. We had a second
I
from
ordered second.
Commissioner Legg. Any other discussion?
Yes, ma'am.
Uh-huh.
I apologize for my voice, but can this? I'm in favor of it, but can this be done by the Christmas event? Can all this budget amendment and the repairs that they're wanting, can we get this done by the Christmas event?
It's probably up to the contractor, but,
Yeah, we'll reach out and get the estimates and find out the timeline.
yeah.
Because it sounded like to me that's what it was for, was
Yeah.
the Christmas
Right.
event. So I'd like to see it done by then.
And that's why, and Commissioner Marley, that's why I'm bringing to the board. I mean, from their meeting, usually we don't discuss any committee reports until, our meeting that designates that. But this issue, and there's another one that's on this request about the house. These were the two main issues that came from that meeting. And because of, it's a time-sensitive item, for Scott to reach out to the contractor on. And then there's another one on here about the period house itself, and we'll talk to that one. I'll talk about that one once we finish the action on this.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of directing Mr. Mazzaros to inquire about the cost and also the execution of budget amendment to have these repairs done. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Any opposed? Seeing none. Okay.
Madam Mayor, the second issue on this request was their meeting started at the Trade Street Period House, and during a walk around, they were looking at the windows, and it appeared to them, and Ricky Sadler was there as well, that there was termite damage around the external windows, including crawl space. It could be wood rot or something, but that's what it would look like. And the committee wanted to bring that to the town manager's attention, to look at and investigate. What is it? Termite damage? Is it wood rot, or what is the problem with these window frames?
So I apologize, I wasn't involved with any of the work sessions or direction on that. It was my understanding that the chapel was the focus for this council, and that the other property was to be left alone completely. They would take an action of the council to do something with this.
Mhm.
They would, it's up to you, it's the budgeted funds, and it sounded like the focus was on the bathrooms and the current project.
Mhm.
It seems, I'll just speak out and say, it seems odd to me that no city department has carryover money, and that isn't how we budget, but the funds for this project and this group has some kind of carryover funds which will come directly out of contingency monies. It just contradicts how the rest of the budget works.
Mhm.
This is just an observation, so it's up to you, whatever you direct for us to do, I will make sure it happens. That's just, I wasn't involved, I don't know the history, I'm just trying to point out, I hear this from all my department heads. We don't typically carry over funds, so I know that the bathroom is an expensive project. If
And-
there are carryover funds, it would be my suggestion.
Did it go
to
toward the
store
bathroom?
carryover funds on the bathroom.
Mhm.
But I don't make motions, I just take direction. So,
Madam
I
Mayor?
don't know. It's up
Yes.
to you.
I would like to see, so the chapel, these are adjustments and things that are needed that we didn't budget for?
So these are items, to my understanding, that are being looked at, that were not part of the scope in the original contract to fix. They only want to be outside, buttoned up and completed. And if I'm not speaking out of turn, this is what I'm being told by different sources. I'm not trying to inflect what I know about it. I've just been told that, they have these other items that they'd like to see done. And I know, for instance, the Public Works Director's been working on the lights. It's It's not a simple, they're very aged, they're very damaged, they are something that he's taking a lot of pride to try to correct himself. And like hanging up the sign, we do have the sign, we can make it an easy thing to put it up. It's a problem of coordination, saying this is where it should be without knowing what the other components on the building are. I think it's a little touchy because there's a lot of opinions and direction in different ways. And I think for Public Works, it's hard to say, get this all done when some of those things have changed even since I've been here. So I think it would just be good to have a clear, it's one thing to have a committee give direction to this council, but this council has to direct us what to do and with the monies to do it. I know that doesn't always line up with the different committees and to what our directions are. My directions come from you, and those committees give me recommendations of how to do that.
So my other question is, with these repairs not fixed, and I don't know, I know that, didn't you all have Old Mill Day?
Yeah, we went in there on Mill Days. It was okay as it was. It's beautiful, and unless I was there, and the chapel, I think, with the exception of the outdoor lights, the lantern lights, it's ready. It could be used as it is. I think the next issue that I have heard is they won't take the carpet up and have the flooring redone. And I honestly believe that, and I might be wrong on this too, but I do believe these are issues that should have been brought to you, and then you could bring it to us. This is not normal that we would. It could have gone through you, and you make the recommendation.
But I think, just to speak to that, I can't take a bunch of action and get quotes and estimates from the committees. I have to get that through.
Now I'm saying the committee could have given you, and you could have told us that we want this. We want to get your opinion. Do you want to make a motion to have me do this? In other words, I think whichever way is fine, but I think where we are now is we're adding more things to our list of things, and
So I guess those lists have been given to the council, but there was no motion or action taken on those lists to us.
no.
No.
So you have the list, you understand the list, but I can't take actions on those because, one, I have no funds allocated to do that.
Madam Mayor, I think to clear these last items, these are the only outstanding ones on the chapel. I think probably the best way to entertain this would probably be have a representative from the HPC meet there at the chapel with the contractor to identify exactly what needs to be repaired. Because I can look at it in a different way. You can look at it in a different way, and the contractor, these weren't items that were not in the original contract. The committee assumed they were, but they weren't. And the contractor finished the work that he was contracted to do, and these were the remaining items. And that's all. I mean, that's all the items we're talking about, and that will finish the chapel. So maybe that's the right direction to go in, is just to have the representative from the committee meet the contractor, identify what needs to be repaired, get the estimate, and come back to the board.
Would it be appropriate to ask our Public Works Director to be there also?
Yes? Yep. Well,
I
that's
think
up to Scott.
I think that would be appropriate. Okay, well, so we've got, the motion that we have on the floor is to instruct the town manager to find out how much it's gonna cost to get these repairs done, and then bring it back to the board. Is that what you're asking for?
Going off of what that listed here.
Just the items, we're talking about the light fixtures, the external, the racks, and the benches. Just those three items.
Okay.
Those are the only ones.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Any opposed?
Didn't we vote on this already?
All right, I'm moving on
I
with
don't know.
discussions
We
done
voted
then.
again.
We're good.
Take away
Thank
voted
you.
on.
All righty, manager's report. Do we have any additions or any questions for our manager?
Madam Mayor, I've got two questions.
All righty,
The first one is, what is the current status of the police chief vacancy position?
So, I have, pending applicants potentially watching this, who I've not spoken to.
Okay.
I have reached out, we did interviews last week, I had some of the department heads participate with the final interview of 3 candidates. All of them were excellent. It's a very difficult decision. I believe I have the direction that I feel is the right way to go. I have HR reach out with an offer letter, and I have not, I spoke to that individual this morning, and it's still kind of up in the air. I wouldn't want to make any comments, because when you have more than one person involved, it may end up, that's not the person that we hire, it may be
Yeah.
other person in the process. So we're very close. Obviously, depending on that person, if they're employed or not employed, they may be able to start within 30 days or.
Okay.
So to be honest, the 3 finalists we interviewed, I think are all exceptional, which makes it even more difficult than just having one that stands out. But I think we're very close, and I feel like we'll get a good chief out of the process.
That's good. Second question I have is, do we have a DOT contract to mow the right-of-way along the 4500 block of Legion Road?
So we do have numerous contracts. As odd as it sounds, this is a policy issue about maintenance of right-of-way. So the town legally, this is an attorney issue, legally, the adjacent property owner of all right-of-way in the city is responsible for maintaining right-of-way, which the city public works does tons of right-of-way, all of the lake, all of the railroad bridge, the gateways to town is in the reports. You get every manager's report. It has all of the activities they do every month. How and where they do that has been more of a direction by councils over the years to the different public works directors, and it's really, I think the intent is to maintain and keep the town looking great. At this juncture, we could say we cease doing a lot of those, and those public works employees could do a lot of other things on the list of work. And we could make code enforcement, make all property owners go and maintain that. We can do that. It's more of a courtesy. The DOT right away on exit 41 is a good example. There's agreements there. They enhance landscapes and planted flowers, and the maintenance there is immense. Whatever council or persons involved in those decisions chose to enhance them and make them really beautified, which takes a lot of town resources to do that work. So I know that if you look at right-of-way and improvements, we have a lot of these things with BAMPO and DOT coming at us, roundabouts, sidewalks. The adjacent properties, you can usually tell on a project by looking at enhanced projects and driveway skirts where they did the work to in the right-of-way. So it's real easy to tell on the new stuff that's improved, like they fixed the right-of-way, but not the yard, or they didn't extend it down past where they. So most of the stuff that we're obligated and required to do is just to replace those concretes and those sidewalks when they go bad. We're not required to do much more than that. Our crews do a ton more than that. I could get Public Works or Chance or here to be in here. So I would say on all maintenance we do, I don't really have any kind of contractual requirement to do any of the mowing, maintenance, pruning at all. I don't have proof of that in anything except for previous boards and the reports to Public Works.
So we don't have any contractual obligations to maintain the right-of-ways of 4500 Legion Road. Then why do we maintain it?
Why do we do all of the things we do, sir? It's been a practice.
Why do we maintain that and we don't maintain other parts of our neighborhoods like Timberlake, like the median strips between and I know what the answer is going to be. There's a strip there between Walgreens and McDonald's that belongs to DOT, and believe me, it is horrendous. It is even to the point now, Scott, where the stormwater drains are full of debris. And I'm not talking about just that one strip. I'm talking about just about every intersection in and out of our community is full of debris. It's full of weeds. Yet, we cut other properties in different places. It almost looks like we pick and choose, or maybe there's a reason why one area is maintained and another is not.
Yeah, I would say the gateways are what Public Works has directed as you come into the towns. DOT usually does it 4 times a year. And the town has chosen to do it at least every other week in most of these locations. And I would say, you know, looking at, when I first came here, one of the things that stuck out, and I didn't notice until people pointed it out, is you rarely see trash in the Colt Mills jurisdiction, because all of our crews and all of our staff are meticulous about picking up garbage. And then I go down Legion out into the county, and there's trash all over the right of way and the sidewalks. That's not in Hope Mills. It would be a policy decision if you want us to not, if you want to have DOT just cut and maintain those things 4 times a year quarterly. I can get that direction from you, and we'll cease cutting and mowing and spending all of that time and money and use those resources for other permanent things.
But Scott, there's areas that hasn't been cut once. Now you're telling me 4 times a year. I can tell you, I can,
That's what DOT does.
yeah, I can take you to areas that DOT has not touched at all.
I'm not responsible for DOT, so I couldn't tell you that.
And months ago, I brought this concern up about DOT contracts with maintenance. I even asked Jane, you know, if we, and she knows, months ago about contracting with DOT. The city has contracts with DOT. City of Fayetteville.
Sure. It's similar.
That, yes, that DOT compensates them to maintain right-of-ways.
They don't compensate us to my knowledge.
And from what I'm hearing here, and I looked at all the ones that you sent me, and they're all back 20 years ago. They're expired, the majority of them. So, and it brings me back to the intersections, and I mean, they look poorly. They are. DOT's not doing anything about it. They haven't cut any of them. They haven't cleaned up anything. And then when I see other areas that are maintained by town employees, it contradicts, and it concerns me. Because I look at the town as a whole, not in just one neighborhood. I look at every neighborhood, regardless of where people live. The same service applies to anybody in town, regardless.
I can assure you I could do all of it if I get the money and the resources to do that. I can get you estimates on what that would be, because right now I couldn't give you an estimate 40%. Most of the gateways, most of the areas that have been improved already that are not dated, unimproved areas without sidewalks. The town park, I mean, outside our facilities here, it's an ongoing, consistent, it's almost like a golf course or a park. And I think, you know, if we don't want to spend that resource and make them look as detailed and as highly kept as they are, we can adjust those service levels for sure. It's detailed in your manager's report. If you look in your public works details, how many times they empty the trash daily, they pick up limbs. The limb service and yard debris just in this town, it's a major cost and production to pick up neighborhoods and limbs and leaves, and that's a service. It's not a requirement. We do not have to do any of that. So if that's a service that you direct me to cease doing, I could make that happen. I think it's what do you as the council want the community to have for service. If you want my recommendation, police service is something that's an issue. It's gonna be, an issue with the growth. We have revenues coming. I've never been somewhere or know a manager that has council members that wanna stick FTEs and bodies in buildings until it's severely behind, and that's where everybody does that. It's impossible to be ahead of the curve on our police department and our fire department without spending tons of money, and to do that, we need the revenue generation. And that comes through the commercial and the taxation, and, you know, we're looking at bonds. If you look at our mill levy compared to like Spring Lake, it's about half. I'm not saying you should raise taxes, but that's how to get more services, and that's a recommendation that you have to weigh heavily. It's, you know, if you want the service level, you can provide that, but with what we're currently doing on these projects and things, I have to be given a way to redirect the operations so that we can do that. That's why we do the budgeting, and it's a challenge. Everybody has limited means to do difficult tasks, and the prioritization is the hardest part of your job in the budget.
If we're gonna maintain right-of-ways, I just want to be fair about it and not just maintain one street, one neighborhood, one person's home, but offer that same level to all of our neighborhoods. So either we do it for everybody or we don't do it at all.
I can take that direction if that's what.
I mean, that's how I feel. I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but there's certain neighborhoods that are being right-of-ways are being maintained, and then there's certain neighborhoods they aren't. It's a fairness issue, to me.
I think, you know, to be fair to the public works director, it's an allocation of work that's been directed differently through different councils and different managers. And it's challenging to be the people on the end doing that service, because all of them work very hard. And they make, I believe they do an excellent job at what they do.
They do an excellent job. That's not the point. I've been on this board for 4 years, and I haven't heard of any direction from the prior board or this board to direct our public works to take care of right-of-ways in neighborhoods and certain people's homes. I have not heard that.
And I would say they don't take care of anybody's homes, they take care of right-of-way.
Right-of-ways, adjacent to homes.
Adjacent.
Yes.
Adjacent to the road.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Anything else in questions for the manager in reference to the manager's report? Reminder that we don't have another meeting until November 15th. We do have Heroes Homecoming, November the 6th through 13th. And at this time, do we have any staff comments? No staff comments? All righty. At this time, do we have a motion?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to go into closed session pursuant to NCGS 143-1811A3, attorney-client privilege, and personnel NCGS 143-318-11A6.
Have a motion, have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. We'll report to the front conference room at this time. We beg your patience. We'll be back as quick as we can.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
At this time, I'll call our meeting back to order. Do we have a motion?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move to seal the minutes of the closed session until such time as the release of the information will no longer frustrate the purpose of the closed session and further no action was taken.
Have a motion, have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Before so, I'd like to wish all of you good luck at the upcoming election. I hope all goes well for each and
You as
every
well,
one
sir.
of you that are seeking to get back into office. And thank those of you who are not running again.
You got 2 left.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Good evening. We'll see you November 15th, if not before.